Never have we had access to so much information, but with that, we also have access to so much misinformation. I mean, veganism, vegetarianism, when it really had its moment, a lot of it was framed around weight loss. So I always called it like the vegan honeymoon. They likely will feel good for 3 to 6 months before nutritional deficiencies start to kick in.
Welcome back to CATAMANIA. I have Dr. Maya Kuczma. Dr. Maya, bit of an introduction.
I am a naturopathic doctor, but made the switch to aesthetics. People that are eating junk, they're probably not feeling great, but they're so used to not feeling great every day.
Right.
Their stomach kind of hurts, and they have no understanding that that could be really related back to what they're eating. It's challenging enough to have hormones that naturally change throughout a month, and not being on birth control means you actually get in touch with those seasons.
Yeah.
That's a gift that's kind of robbed from us.
Welcome back to CATAMANIA, and as per usual, feel free, or actually not feel free, but please give it thumbs up, heart button, whatever platform you're listening to this on. It means more than you know. I have Dr. Maya Kuczma, who has a Ukrainian last name, but apparently she doesn't speak Ukrainian.
No, it's so shameful. Not a lick. Perahe.
You were born and raised
The
in
most
Canada.
important word, perahe. That's all I know. It's pierogi.
Oh, pierogi. Yeah. I don't speak Ukrainian either. I'll understand it if it's spoken like slowly. And if I read it, I will understand most of it because it's so similar to Russian.
Oh, okay.
But coming from Moldova, I speak Russian. That was my first language. And then I speak Romanian. I've been forgetting it quite a bit after moving to Canada because now English is my second language. But yeah, it's interesting how so I'll understand a little bit of Ukrainian, quite a bit of Ukrainian, I should say. And I'll understand a little bit of Serbian, like Serbian Croatian.
Oh, okay.
I'll understand a tiny bit of Polish, but that's where it starts to get okay, that sounds, even though it's a Slavic language, but it sounds quite a bit different, you know? So
I noticed that with Spanish and Portuguese. Like I'm okay in Spanish, but I'll hear Portuguese and I can pull little bits out.
Yeah.
And then I kind of lose it because then it diverges too much.
Brazilian Portuguese is one of my favorite sounding
sounds
on earth.
Beautiful.
I love it so much. There's just something about it. Maybe because it has also that bossa nova, attached to it in my mind, the association. I absolutely love Brazilian Portuguese. Dr. Maya, bit of an introduction.
Okay.
If I may ask.
Yes.
Tell me about yourself.
Okay. I am a naturopathic doctor in Vancouver, BC. I've been a doctor for 10 years. Originally working mostly in what we consider classic naturopathic medicine or functional medicine, but made the switch to aesthetics a few years ago as kind of what I thought would be a side hustle. And very quickly realized aesthetics should not be a side hustle. There's so much to learn and so much that I love about it that I made it my primary focus. And now that's all I do.
And you do Russian lips.
And I do Russian lips.
We were just talking about that.
Yes.
The whole Russian brand attached to aesthetics, right?
Yes. The high standard that that part of the world has. There's so much to learn. The challenge is trying to get over there and learn it or cross that language barrier. So our clinic owner did actually go to Europe. I forget where the course was, but she had to actually have a translator because the woman she was learning from spoke only Russian.
Yeah.
So she watched the techniques and then had the translation and then brought it back to the rest of us and taught us so that everyone at Caviar does do Russian lips.
One of my friends went to Russia for World Cup back in, I can't remember what year it was, 2016 I think, or 2017. And he came back and he's like, wow, I know this is gonna sound weird, but all the women there have such beautiful lips. And I'm like, Do you want me to tell you why?
Let me tell you about what they're all doing.
Women there are beautiful. They really are. But also I was like, they really know what's up when it comes to aesthetic medicine and everything related to, you know, lips, fillers. They just do it so well. When you had so do you still focus on naturopathic medicine at all?
Not really. No. I mean, I would say there are still some things that I do in aesthetics that are very naturopathic. Like I do a lot of blood-based treatments, platelet-rich plasma, platelet-rich fibrin, in order to stimulate collagen and elastin production. And those treatments really still have that naturopathic principle behind them, that you're encouraging the body's innate ability to heal itself. So that still has my like naturopathic roots in it. And then I try to just bring in some of that foundation into aesthetic appointments in general as well. So my appointments are a little bit longer than maybe a classic aesthetic doctor. So I have a little bit more time to discuss a little bit around lifestyle and start to drop information about habits and general wellness, because that does play such a role in our skincare. But beyond that, it's very aesthetic focused, and that's what my day is filled with.
Do you have an opinion when it comes to certain fashion trends in diet and just in general wellness? Because, so the reason why I'm asking you this, I was a vegetarian for 3 years, a while ago. And I, on top of that, for a period of time while I was vegetarian, I was also on birth control. And I don't know if it was everything together or just the vegetarianism part, but I just felt so messed up after. And I was really diligent about like getting my B12 shots, getting all of my vitamins that I was missing from vitamins and minerals, you know, from eating animal products. And at that time I was living in Calgary, and I remember going to my naturopathic doctor who would administer the B12 shots. And I told her like, hey, I'm like really low on energy. I'm really foggy. And she was like, hey, have you considered eating meat? And at that time, I remember like, you're a naturopath. Like, isn't that technically not supposed to like happen?
Right.
At that time, vegetarianism and veganism was still like super trendy.
Yeah.
And she told me, she's like, I know, but I tried to be reasonable in my research and open-minded, and it just doesn't work for some people. So you might want to try eating meat. And I think that following week, I like started with chicken, then I added salmon, then I went to beef. I never looked back because my body feels amazing when I eat meat.
Yeah.
So how do you, as someone who obviously has like that background, right? The educational background, you had that work experience. How do you, you know, navigate through these, what feels like fashion trends in nutrition and wellness?
For sure. It's an interesting time. I mean, never have we had access to so much information, and I do love that about the internet. You can go and learn about anything you want, but with that, we also have access to so much misinformation, and I see everything being turned into a sound bite.
Right.
Something can be very trendy if it's aggressive or framed in a way that's controversial or over-promising. That's a really easy way to deliver information, especially to women. And so I see some things being packaged as really harmful trends. I mean, veganism, vegetarianism, when it really had its moment, a lot of it was framed around weight loss. That become vegan so that you can lose weight, or if you're vegetarian, the weight will fall off. It'll be so easy to be slim.
And it's healthy.
And it's healthy because it's plants. And so that must be good, right? And we do see that sometimes, I always called it like the vegan honeymoon, where someone changes to that diet, they likely will feel good for 3 to 6 months before nutritional deficiencies start to kick
Kick
in.
in.
And
your hair starts falling
your
off.
hair starts falling off. Your muscles start to waste. Your skin starts to become depleted. And I would see that when I have my general practice. I would see it in a lot of the testing that we would do, that we'd see women's hormones start to just fall off track. And then I would also see it, especially now, I see it in skin, that I can look at someone's skin and they're very young, but I can tell they're very malnourished. And they may be overweight yet malnourished, but you can see these signs that they're anemic. They don't have enough collagen, and it's prematurely aging them, or it's making them feel really horrible. So I think anytime you start to see symptoms, you have to think about, is there something I'm doing that isn't working for me? Or am I blindly following someone who said it worked really well for them and not doing that self-audit to figure out what is good for an influencer may not be good for me, may not be good for you right now, or may have only been a great sort of 3-month stint to clean up your diet and then really isn't sustainable for the long haul.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends who do like, they call it a cleanse. Like they'll eat vegan for like a month just to reset their body, and it works really well. And then they go back to eating meat. I also found, you know, that running joke when veganism was really famous or really popular, of like, if you meet a vegan, you'll know in the first like 2 seconds that they're vegan, because they'll tell you. Right. I found it was like super interesting how passionate, like people get really almost culty about their diet and about their lifestyle.
Yes.
I don't notice that as much with people who have like a balanced diet, you know, people who are just like eating food, you know, whatever their body feels like eating. Yeah. But I noticed that a lot of these trends, they become almost like a cult for people, and they just identify too much with like, well, I'm a vegan, or I'm a vegetarian, or, you know, veganism is bad. That's your, is that a blanket statement that is fair to say?
I would say it is bad for most people. I mean, it stands out in my mind that I think I had 2 patients in my whole career who were vegan, who I could honestly say this is working for them.
Really?
And they were both male.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And they were also very health conscious, so I think that was a big part of it, that they were eating a ton of food. They were using sprouted grains. They were really conscious of organic produce, making lots of sort of soups and lentils and beans and protein combining. And even that being said, that was great for them for a certain period of time. I don't know if I encountered them later in life, if I could say the same, because we do see that the needs for protein increase at various times in life. But there were a couple males who I could say they were doing well. Their inflammation was really low. They were still managing to build muscle. They were energetic. They were sleeping great. Their hormones were on point.
Very interesting. I would presume that for men it would almost be worse because, well, quite honestly, I don't even know why. Like total lack of knowledge here, but I don't know, like the building muscles. Probably that's why I'm thinking that way, because to build muscle in my mind, it's like you need protein.
Yes.
As a vegan, how do you get protein? And I know it's always like this debate in the online world, at least, between like the vegan crowd and the meat eater crowd, because meat eaters are like, there's no better protein than meat, and then vegans will be like, well, I look muscular, so I can still get it done. So it's interesting. What are your thoughts on carnivore? Have you heard of the carnivore trend? The carnivore bros?
I did carnivore.
You did carnivore?
I did carnivore.
So can we just, for those who don't know, before we even get into it, what is a carnivore diet?
So a carnivore diet is
exactly as it sounds.
yeah. You eat meat. Although even within the carnivore community, there's like debate over what a carnivore diet should look like. But when I did it, I was strict carnivore. So it was only food from an animal. So that was fish, shellfish, red meat, chicken, turkey, full fat dairy, butter, cheese,
All the things that we were
pork.
told
Yeah.
you shouldn't eat, basically.
Yeah. And I exclusively ate that, plus coffee. That was my one little exception, for a year. And
You did it for a year.
I did it for a year. I did it during COVID, which was actually a lot easier because there just wasn't that pull to social activities. We weren't dining out. We were so restricted, but that also meant it was really easy to be regimented. And I've had chronic health issues my whole life and made dietary changes and seen improvement with making dietary changes, like cutting out gluten, cutting out sugar, cutting out alcohol. So that eventually it felt inevitable to go full carnivore and really cut out everything except for animal-based products. And it was, probably one of the best things I've ever done for my health.
Good.
I felt amazing. But I also felt like I needed it for a certain period of time. It felt like a real reset. I noticed a reduction in pain. My energy got better. Some of my hormone levels that had been slightly off balance came into balance, and then improved beyond what usually is expected at my age. My skin got better. I slept
Your skin
better.
is like beautiful.
Thank you.
It's like so smooth and I'm like, I actually looked and I was like,
Oh, thank you.
this is gonna be great because people are gonna be like, she obviously practices what she preaches.
I mean, that's one thing I can say for naturopathic doctors in general. We tend to be a community that really lives what we preach. Generally.
Unlike, and this is not a blanket statement. I'm not talking about every single doctor, but specifically when it comes to general practitioners, many times you will hear them. And this is something, I know that there's a huge divide between naturopathic medicine and like the traditional medicine, but I find in the Western world, in Canada, I can't speak for all of Western world, but it seems to be a trend everywhere. There's so many differences of opinions, A, and B, you'll have general practitioners sometimes who will talk about like high blood pressure, issues that come with being overweight, but they themselves will have high blood pressure. And like it would be very evident that they're not taking very good care of themselves when it comes to health. And it's always like, that phrase, like, don't go to a sick doctor to get health advice. A lot of our doctors here are, not all, I'm not talking about,
For sure.
Yeah. But it does, I notice that I feel like in the naturopathic medicine, maybe because it's just aimed at preventative medicine to begin with, right? To, like you were saying, help your body generate what's necessary for it to heal itself, as opposed to like maybe use external ways to heal it. Maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, you probably know this better, but I have noticed that, the naturopathic doctors, they'll usually be very good at practicing what they preach. And it's,
I think that's something I always take through every part of my life. I want to see a doctor who is healthy. I want to see
just like you want to go to a trainer,
a trainer who's fit,
right? Like you're not gonna
a dentist who has nice teeth. My partner always says, don't hire a tradesman that has a messy truck. They're going to come into your house and they're going to carry that energy into whatever they're doing. You want to see that there's congruency with how someone lives, what they practice, what they preach. And I can buy in to them a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
And then still check in with whatever they're preaching, try it out, and then do that self audit. I mean, I'm always checking in with myself to see, okay, are these habits working? Is my diet working for myself? Is there something that needs to change? Especially women, we have so many kind of seasons of life So I think we do have to be so aware of what worked historically may not work going forward.
Yeah.
But it's a good principle to at least start with going to practitioners who are doing the way that you wish you were doing.
Yeah.
They seem energized, they seem healthy, they seem balanced, they seem happy.
Yeah.
That's a good kind of shopping method.
For sure. I agree with you. Let's talk a little bit about skin, because everybody's going to want to know about this. So your skin improved, you were saying, when you were on, sounds like it was more like an animal-based diet. You were eating animal products only. Did you, like, when you went back to, I guess, or when you went to a different diet, what was it afterwards when the year passed?
So it was kind of a slow reintroduction of different things.
All the carbs and
A little bit of carbs. I mean, really, it was that the world opened up a bit more.
Oh, yeah. That's my thing with carnivore diet. I wanted to try it, and my thing is like, well, but then how do you live your life? How do you go to a restaurant and
And I met my partner, and we were going on lovely dates, and I wasn't gonna say, okay, I'm just getting steak with nothing else. Now, that being said, when we go to eat, we tend to get oysters, steak, lobster, eggs. Like, it is very animal based, but I think it's really changed to more of a pyramid where, like, the base of the pyramid is animal products. And then there's a sprinkling in of a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of in-season fruits, a little bit of rice. I do love some Mexican food, so a little bit of corn tortillas here and there. And kind of, I tested the waters of that, and there were certainly things that I brought in that very quickly I went, oh my gosh, no. There are foods out there that are just poison, essentially. And I had such a clean baseline that I could really easily notice if I ate something that it might affect my skin or it might affect my mood. That was also a really interesting experiment to see.
So you would feel right away. This is interesting because if I haven't had McDonald's in, like, I want to say like 10 years. I haven't had McDonald's in a very long time. And I ate in a fast food place in Cancun airport once because that just was the only option. And my husband was with me. Both of us eat really clean. We instantly got sick.
Oh, wow.
And not like food poisoning, but just we felt ill. Like our stomach was just not doing very well. And like just the whole thing was...
Yeah.
So the cleaner your baseline is, the more you'll feel it, hey?
The more you'll feel it, and the more I think you're connected to those signals. Because I do think that people that are eating junk, they're probably not feeling great, but they're so used to not feeling great that it's just every day.
Right.
Their stomach kind of hurts, they're low energy, their back hurts, or it's a little harder to pinpoint. Like maybe they're anxious all the time, and they have no understanding that could be really related back to what they're eating. But if you feel great and then you eat something and you feel a bit anxious, it's so much easier to go, oh my God, if I ate that every day, I would think I had anxiety.
What are there particular foods that make you feel anxious?
Low quality dairy.
Interesting.
Like really kind of crappy orange cheese. Like real, like run of the mill. Especially in the US, unfortunately, I find some of the dairy that's sold conventionally there, I'll feel horrible after.
We could go down a whole rabbit hole right now and speculate the whole circle of anxiety. I made a video about that recently. Anxiety and then getting medicated for anxiety instead of changing your diet.
And then the medication causing new problems. I mean, you mentioned birth control, and that's one thing I saw in myself back when I was prescribed birth control, and then I noticed it a lot in patients who were on birth control. that you had to do this sort of historical unwinding to get at, well, you say you've been really depressed. When did that start? What changed? Oh, that's interesting. You went on birth control 3, 6, 9 months before. Then your mood started to change, and no one's really drawn it back to maybe that was a factor and worth exploring to see that if that's removed, then does this new condition that you've been diagnosed with and now carry with you for your life, maybe that condition actually completely evaporates.
That's a subject I really love talking about because, like you, I experienced it on myself. I had a friend who, she was taking birth control and she was really depressed, and she started taking antidepressants on top of birth control. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you can yell at me and tell me I'm not a medical professional, I'm not qualified to speak about that, sure. But when I hear stories like that as someone who's experienced, like, I'm a very positive, optimistic person. When I was on birth control, I had suicidal thoughts at times, out of nowhere. Just I would feel very off mentally, and I definitely wasn't feeling myself. And I brought that up with my family doctor, and he just said, let's put you on another one because this one might not be working for you.
Maybe it's just the
but it's
brand.
probably not that. But let's try something else, you know?
There's either that switch to let's try a different type of birth control, like another prescription birth control, another hormonal birth control, or there's polypharmacy where, okay, birth control, you still need, quote unquote, so we'll keep you on the hormonal birth control, but then we'll prescribe the antidepressant. And then that antidepressant might make you have trouble sleeping, but that's okay because we have a sleeping pill. And that was the trajectory I went through as a teen. It was birth control, and then my mood was affected. Plus, I was a teenager, and who isn't moody?
Yeah.
As a teenager.
As a girl.
As
like,
a girl.
Right?
As a girl going through puberty. But there was this knee-jerk reaction of, well, now we'll put you on an antidepressant. And then I'd always had a hard time sleeping, but it got worse. So then there was a sleeping pill.
Oh my God. So you were on them.
So I was 1, 2, 3. By the time I
long?
was 15. And then on my own, through going through university, I started to kind of peel things back, change my lifestyle, change my habits, learn more about health, and cut them back one by one.
Wow.
To the point where, I mean, I think it was
tough too. I don't think, I mean, I've never taken it, but my understanding is it's hard to just be like, okay, I'm done, you know?
Oh, I mean, I think youthful naivete worked in my favor personally, that I did just sort of say, I'm feeling really good, I'm going to stop these things. That's not the best way to do it, certainly. And when it came to the sleeping pill, it was also impossible to do it that way. I learned very quickly that you cannot quit most sleeping pills cold turkey, or you just will not sleep for days.
Oh my God.
So I had to, like, you know, kind of calm down that really invigorated look that I had it of like, I can do it all cold turkey. That wasn't the case with that one medication. And in general, it would have been helpful to have a practitioner help me through that process. But I'm glad I ended up doing it all. But all in, it was still about 10 years that I was on one of those or all 3 medications.
That's a really long time. Wow. And you started as a teen. That's also scary too. Like, your hormones are still, like, your brain is still developing, right? And all of a sudden you're put on all these drugs that just alter your everything, your hormones, your brain, you
don't know who you are underneath those things, especially hormonal.
Sometimes I don't know who
control.
I am without any of that stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, it's challenging enough to have hormones that naturally change throughout a month, no matter what. So you're getting a sense of, who am I during each of these very discrete kind of week-long phases of a month.
Yeah, you go through like all 4 seasons of the year.
All 4 seasons, and with that different needs and different emotions and different desires and different energy levels. And not being on birth control means you actually get in touch with those seasons.
Yeah.
And it's still confusing. It's still challenging.
Yeah,
but at
for sure.
least you have the opportunity to connect with that. Like, I think that that's a gift that's kind of robbed from us.
So much. And you know what? Like, I think that we are almost taught that, like, having that sucks. Like, the fact that you have that is the worst part about being a woman. And whatever you can do to just ignore it or suppress it, do it, you know? And you fall into that because you want to work. You want to succeed. Not to say that you can't, like, you know, succeed without suppressing it. You can, but you have to learn how. And
Yes.
we're not really taught how to do that. I just recently, like just a couple of years ago, learned what my cycle is about and like how it actually works. And I was telling a friend of mine, I just recently learned that I could only get pregnant for like 4 or 5 days out of the month.
Right.
The way we're taught, it's like you could get pregnant at any moment. You got to be
Anytime.
careful. And I'm not saying, you know, just go out and, you know, mindlessly have fun. But it like almost angered me because I was like, this is not what I was taught.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught that I could actually pay. And I understand when you're a teenager, when you're really young, and that could be like an emergency situation.
For sure.
Better be extra cautious. But I don't know if prescribing a hormonal pill that you take that alters you mentally and sometimes physically even, because you can actually like gain weight and all these things, right, could happen. I don't know if that's necessarily the best solution to push to girls.
Especially since for a lot of women, it's just delaying the inevitable. So if they're put on it when they're very young because they have cysts or they have hormonal imbalances, going on the pill is not likely to resolve those issues. So at some point down the road, when they want to come off the pill, if they want to come off the pill, they want to have children,
Right.
they come off of it and that issue is still there. It's just been hidden. And now at 25, 30, 35, 40, they're realizing, oh my gosh, I have PCOS or endometriosis or a tendency towards estrogen buildup. I'm not good at clearing hormones, whatever it is. And now it's crunch time. They're trying to deal with that and heal it when it could have been addressed and possibly balanced as a teen, or at least been given so much support that it didn't worsen, but it also didn't get hidden under the rug for many years.
Is there a correlation between women getting off birth control and getting PCOS and endometriosis? I heard that somewhere, that like an obscene amount of women who get off of it, but it wasn't anything backed by any research. It was just one of those sound bites.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm not going to take it at face value.
Yeah.
But is that something that happens? Like, can it alter it?
Correlation and causation are hard to separate, especially with how birth control can mask those conditions. That condition may have always been there. The genetic tendency may have been there for certain conditions, or the lifestyle habits that were really contributing to that condition may have always been there. But the birth control and how it manipulates your hormones was really hiding that. So then when they come off the pill, it's revealed that they have endometriosis or PCOS. That doesn't necessarily mean the pill caused those conditions, but it's hard to say because they really didn't have a baseline period of their life without the hormones, where maybe those symptoms would have popped up earlier, the testing would have been done earlier. But I think there certainly are challenges with coming off the pill, that we do see issues with the period coming back with a lot of women, that I wouldn't even say is necessarily due to a condition. It just appears that their body got used to having hormones, and now it doesn't have that exogenous source of hormones, and it has to start to trigger its own production. And some bodies are really good at doing that and quickly, and some bodies are not.
I have a friend who was on birth control for 17 years, and then she got off of it and she didn't have a period for 10 years. She was convinced she's not going to be able to have kids. Like, she was like, they already had the conversation with her husband. Like, it was already decided, and then she ended up getting pregnant. She's like, it's an absolute miracle.
That's great.
But 10 years, her
10
body
years.
couldn't get back to what it was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mine was, I can't remember if it was 3 or 6 months, but it was a few months. And I panicked and I freaked out.
Of course.
And then when I finally got it, I was like, yes. But then my periods before I went on the pill were very painless. I didn't have any pain. Didn't really feel fatigue. Nothing. They would last only a couple of days. After I went off the pill, I wanted to die. Like, I was on the verge of calling a doctor every month, pretty much, for the first few months. Now it's still painful for the first day, 24 hours, sometimes 48, rarely, usually 24, and then it's fine, and it lasts like a couple of days, 3 days or so. Which got me into thinking. I had somebody on my podcast recently who said, if you do experience pain, you should get that checked out. So as I'm sitting here and telling you this, I'm like, I should probably get that checked out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of that information that's been really taken from us by not understanding our bodies. There's also this real lack of understanding that these fluctuations in our cycle should be fairly easy, especially if we're in tune with responding to the little shifts in needs or desires or energy level. But this idea that doubling over in pain or having to call in sick to work because of your period, it really does a disservice to women that they're told that's normal. Normal is different than common. Just because something happens for a lot of people does not mean it's normal.
Right.
And if you are having severe pain at any time, any person, it's worth investigating. We just shouldn't have these instances of severe pain, whether it's period-related pain or back pain or migraines. Like, they're all a signal that something is out of balance.
Yeah, I gotta get that checked out because I do experience like quite a bit of pain in the first day, especially. Somebody told me like it could be a sign of PCOS, and I'm like, oh, I haven't gotten that checked out in a really long time, and I really need to.
And it could be, I mean, from a naturopathic perspective, sometimes it's an easy fix. Like,
right.
Sometimes that's the other thing. I do see this jump to, oh my gosh, maybe it's a condition. Maybe it's a little bit of an imbalance. Your body is prone to making more inflammation than it needs to.
Yeah, I've heard it could be inflammation.
Could be inflammation, that there's a little bit of an inflammatory response that tends to happen leading up to the period or in the first couple of days. But it should be pretty mild.
Yeah.
Your body should be able to kind of close the loop on that. But if there's a bit too much inflammation in your system in general, then that inflammatory reaction is unchecked. It can go a little bit more riled up than we need it to, and that can be diet related, that can be stress related, that can be nutritional deficiency related as well. One of the common concerns coming off the pill is that the pill itself depletes certain nutrients.
I've heard about that, yeah.
So if you've been on it for a long time, it has brought some of those nutrient levels down, and that may need to be remedied as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your belief when it comes to mind-body relation and disease being caused by minds not being at ease? I heard that somewhere. Every disease is caused by a mind not at ease. Do you believe in that?
Oh, hard to say every disease, because there are diseases that are so genetic related, that you inherit the gene, your chance of getting into certain disease. I think of something like Huntington's. Like if you have the gene, it creates the disease. And I'd really hesitate to say that there's a mind, that the mind is causing that. But I do think the mind has an influence on every condition, and certainly your mind determines suffering. You can have pain and not suffer depending on your mindset. And like I said, I had chronic pain as a kid, and so I don't say that lightly, but I know that pain isn't always a choice, but suffering is. So the way our mind can influence what we're experiencing, the nature of a disease, it's incredibly powerful. I don't think you can even tease them apart. We do in Western medicine, but there's many traditions of medicine that really incorporate them together. There's no division. And I think that's when I see people get the healthiest they can be, is when they honor that connection. That we all want to just sort of package wellness into really easy parcels of like, I go to the gym for an hour and then I eat healthy meals 3 times a day and I take my supplements and I'm well. But I see that for a lot of people that's not the case. It's great to have that foundation, but if there is some mental anguish or stress or trauma that's not being dealt with, it can create physical suffering.
Yeah. It's almost like a circle of things, right? Like you have to take care of your body, but then you also have to take care of your mind. If you take care of your body, your mind will likely be easier to take care of. And if you take care of your mind, your body will be, it's a whole...
For sure.
Yeah.
If you're more balanced, then you feel like you can create more discipline. So you can actually go to the gym, and then you go to the gym, you feel happier. So then you're more likely to engage with the world around you and find purpose and passion, and that's going to then feed into your body and make it feel good, and so on. So it's either a very upward spiral of one leading to the next, or unfortunately a downward spiral.
When we're talking about antidepressants and birth control, I just had a thought about it that I was like, we should probably get into that just a little bit. I heard, so birth control, I can speak confidently, suppresses your sex drive. And I heard that antidepressants do too. Is that correct?
Well, with most of these medications, they have a host of side effects, but they will not affect everyone in the same way.
Okay.
So, and that's true of any drug. Some people will take it and feel like, oh, my mood got better. Especially antidepressants. For some people, they go from being suicidal to actually feeling like they could start to make some healthy habits.
Right.
That
And
will
that's
help their
when I'm
mood.
like, maybe it was a good, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like trying to put a blanket statement of like, nobody ever should take them, because sometimes, it does get people out of some pretty dark times.
Break the cycle that they're in, that's when it's really effective, especially if they have a doctor who says, great, that helped you break the cycle. Now we're going to get your health, your lifestyle, your habits, your life circumstances addressed. And then we're going to revisit whether you still need this medication. I think that's when it's used really responsibly. But for some people, they'll take a medication and within a few days, they will have one or many side effects. And unfortunately, I don't see a lot of informed consent happening around these medications where they're actually, a patient is taken through, hey, you may notice that your mood gets better, or you may notice your mood actually gets way worse. There's certain antidepressants, especially in teens, that can actually trigger suicidal thoughts.
Whoa.
So let's be on the lookout for that.
So it's doing the complete opposite of
It's
what's
doing
supposed
the
to?
complete opposite. There's a certain percentage of the population, which I found when it comes to supplements and herbs even, they will respond completely in the opposite direction of what that supplement or herb is supposed to do.
That's
Medications are similar.
Yeah.
But if you're armed with that information and you start an antidepressant and say, for example, you notice, oh my gosh, my libido has crashed and my doctor said this could happen, you're more likely to go back to your doctor and say, something about this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Can we change course? So information's always powerful in that sense, that you can be on the lookout for how it affects you, and make changes if it's not working appropriately.
Yeah. I guess maybe not blindly just following everything and thinking that it's supposed to work, right? With everything.
And that's a two-way street. I mean, that means patients have to be more inquisitive, but also doctors have to,
for sure,
not get their back up when we're questioned. I have people question me all the time, and I think it's great. It makes me better.
I think we do have I have a lot of respect for doctors. My mom's a doctor. I grew up around a lot of doctors. But I do think, like, where I come from, preventative medicine is part of medicine. Here, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I feel like. And I think that in this part of the world, doctors definitely, we've put this like God complex attached to them, right? So whatever your doctor says, you follow, like you don't question it. So I feel like there's still that almost stigma around questioning what your doctor's prescribing or questioning if this is the right solution for you. If your doctor said it could be the right solution for you, right? So I think now it's obviously changing after the last, few years, but somehow, if you start talking about it, like especially online, right away people flare up and like, oh, what do you mean? You're disrespecting no, I'm not just asking questions, literally just asking questions. And doctors are humans. Yes, they're humans. Yes. Right? Why can't I question a decision that they're making or something that they're suggesting?
And if they're a good doctor, they're always learning as well and noticing that maybe something they told their patients a couple years ago isn't true anymore, and so they're going to change course and they're going to try and keep up with those questions, and shift and improve. And I think some doctors are frustrated with the energy that takes, but that's our job,
right?
Naturopathic medicine is based on the principle of doctor as teacher. We're supposed to be teachers first and foremost. And with that means we are learning for our lifetime as well. And if we don't want to keep up with that, if you don't want to learn more and keep questioning and driving for truth and progress, it's not a job for you.
Yeah, for sure. Like if there's a lot of ego attached to it, I feel like there's a lot of ego, it seems, attached in general to, everything. We're humans, right? But I think we forget that there's also ego in medicine. There's also ego in science.
Of course.
We're not supposed to take everything at face value, right? We're supposed to ask questions and learn, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, right?
Especially.
Yeah.
And I think aesthetics is very guilty of that right now. There's kind of celebrity doctors.
Oh, yeah.
It can become the main attraction on Instagram, where it's like the doctor has the personality and the fame, and that's great. That's great. But at the end of the day, that's not kind of how we're of service,
right,
to people. It is a job of service, ultimately.
I talked to a plastic surgeon on my podcast recently, and he does everything related to like faces, basically. And we were talking about $100,000 facelifts. I don't know if you've heard of those, but he was like, it's just, what did he call it? He didn't quite say money grab, but he basically was like, there's absolutely no reason why. It's just a brand thing. Like they build a brand for themselves and then they just charge whatever they kind of want. Cause he's like, I don't think that that's a fair price for those services, but because there's a brand attached to it, because celebrities go to some of these people and, I can charge whatever I want. Whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting thing that happens when there's the personality or the brand attached to it, or, you know, whatever else it could be. Do you ever get asked with suspicion? And I don't think so, because I think it goes hand in hand. But do you ever get asked, like, if you're a naturopathic doctor, how come you use Botox and fillers? And
Oh my gosh, of course I get asked.
I want to hear all about that, because
it's been controversial within our profession. There are certain naturopaths who think it is completely against our beliefs, our system, our knowledge, and then of course there's tons of naturopaths who think it's great. It's not something they will offer or that they're interested in doing, but they really don't mind that we do it. And then there's a big group of us who have made it part of our practice, or the sole part of our practice, that we focus on aesthetics now. I mean, luckily, I just have never cared what people thought of me.
good for you. That's the way to go.
Which is great, because some naturopaths are very opinionated about it. Some patients are very opinionated about it as well, that it's upsetting to them. But
are you forcing those injections on them? Like, why are they upset about it?
that's the thing. I mean, I would never ever say that someone has to do aesthetic treatments, any type. I have patients that come in and say, "Doctor, what do I need?" And I say, well, first of all, you don't need anything. This is not a need. This is a want. And you want to look good. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You have permission to want that. And then I turn it back on them and I say, well, what do you notice with your face? And then we get to have really honest conversations, and it usually comes down to that they feel like they look more tired than they are, or they look more sad than they actually are, or they look more angry than they are. And they're like, my face.
That's how I convinced my husband to get Botox, because I'm like, your frown line needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, they feel like how they feel isn't being reflected out to the world, and they want to shift that. And I mean, anyone who's put on lipstick when they're feeling down has done that.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can get on our high horse and say one form of beauty treatment is okay, but another form isn't. It's all of our own choice, how we want to engage with the world, the way we want to present ourselves. And it's my job to ensure that someone understands what that injection might mean. How does it work? How does it not work? What can it do? What are its limitations? How long does it last? What are the risks? What are the side effects? How long has it been in practice for? How much research do we have?
Yeah.
What are the statistics? All of that. And then they get to make their own decision about their own body.
When I started questioning, and we don't have to get into it, but it's just a funny concept. I found some of my friends who are really heavy on, or not heavy, but they're fans of like Botox and fillers and aesthetic medicine. They didn't want to get like the COVID vaccine. And a lot of my friends who were really for the COVID vaccine were like giving them shit, being like, well, you inject yourself with all this stuff. And the argument is like, yeah, but this stuff has been around for like years and years and years. This is a brand new thing. So it's like this constant, like, you don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't. And I'm like, just everybody needs to just stop. Okay. Like you should be able to choose what you get with everything, like whatever you put in your body, you know?
Exactly.
But the research piece and the evidence behind it is interesting, because I find, and, you know, I want to ask you, like, if there's a blanket statement of like, well, is Botox bad for you? Is it good for you? Are the fillers good for you? Are the fillers bad for you? I find I have some friends who are like super against this stuff. And they're so against it that it's to the point of like, when I talk about like getting work done, they're like, oh my, like, why would you ever do that? Like, see, look at me. I'm, you know, and it's fine. I respect their choice, but I find like the side that's against it, they usually are a lot more reluctant to respect the choice of those who get aesthetic medicine done, right?
Yeah.
So is it like, is it, can we say confidently, I guess, if it's good for you, if it's bad for you, if there's certain things that are worse for you than others? I mean, I think most of my audience will probably know what Botox does, what fillers do. Is there anything that you could get that's like better for you than other things, or worse for you than other things?
I don't know that I would say better or worse. As long as you're going to a regulated injector who is licensed.
How would you go to a non-regulated injector who's licensed?
There's so many ways. There is a major concern in Canada, well, really in many parts of the world right now, that injectors are advertising on Instagram, usually, and they're promoting deals, cheap filler, cheap Botox, sales.
If you see cheap, the word cheap next to plastic surgery, next to aesthetics, don't do it. Run. Why would you do it? Why would you save money on that stuff?
And unfortunately, a lot of these people who are advertising and putting themselves out there and doing these deals, if you contact them and you follow through, you then find they're located in an apartment. They don't have a license. They don't have insurance, of course, because if they don't have a license, they can't get malpractice insurance. So if something happens to you, there's no coverage. And they can't buy regulated products either, because these different companies, whether it be the companies that manufacture Botox or stylage, filler, they will only sell to licensed regulated practitioners. So the products that this apartment injector is using, we don't know what it is. It's probably off of an online store from somewhere in the world, doesn't have a DIN number, isn't Health Canada approved, may not even be what it claims to be.
And people still go for it?
And people still go for it.
After you've ignored all the red flags already, you've gotten a whole bunch of other red flags, and you still, like this red, like my nail color red, and then you still went for it?
And unfortunately, I see people fortunately, I see them afterwards because I'm happy they end up in my office. But unfortunately, they've often gone through a really traumatic experience because maybe they showed up at the apartment and then they felt like I couldn't leave. They didn't want to be impolite.
Oh, for fuck's sake. This is such a Canadian thing to do.
This is where it's really helpful not to give any fucks about what people think about you, because if you have this gut reaction that you've shown up somewhere, it's not right, you just leave. You just leave.
Sorry, I changed my mind.
I changed my mind.
You don't even have to be rude about it.
I hear my washing machine going off. My cat's sick. Whatever. You can just say, no, thank you, and leave. And if you end up in a place that looks like, I don't know, they've maybe rented a room somewhere, but doesn't look very professional, you also can ask, where are you licensed? Yeah. What's your title? Could I see your business license? Do you have malpractice insurance? Could I see that? I have all of that with me at all times. I can easily share that with any patient and say, take this, have a think about it, come back if you want, but here's all the information about how I do what I do, how I was trained,
and it's not
how
rude
I got
to
here.
Ask that. You can even say listen, I have heard about bad experiences. I just want to make sure. You only have to do it once, and then you know the person. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So if you're going down that route of mysterious, suspicious injectors, of course there are a ton of risks. It is dangerous. It is. We don't know the product that's being used. But
what's the worst thing that you've seen? Like you said, some of those people come to you afterwards to fix it.
Having to dissolve lips that had a vessel occluded from using inappropriate technique, inappropriate filler, and a blood vessel was completely blown in their lip. So they had a huge hematoma. They had filler. I think I could grasp that they had filler that was similar to something I would use in a chin or jawline. So it was thick filler. And we had to dissolve it. We had to dissolve it immediately because it was compromising the vasculature. But I also had to level with the patient to say, I don't know if this was even hyaluronic acid that was injected. It could have been anything.
Just some rubber. You got some rubber in your lip.
Silicone, could have been God knows what. And so we had to watch and wait and use the dissolver and see if it started to improve, which thankfully it did. But I've tried to dissolve what people thought was filler from even other parts of the world, and we've discovered it wasn't filler. It's not breaking down. And especially certain parts of, sometimes they've gone somewhere in South America, it could have been 10 plus years ago, and they say, I don't even know what they said it was. They're like, they just said they were going to define my chin. They didn't even tell me what they were using. I couldn't even find the practitioner if I tried. Like, they disappeared. And so we have to...
Why would you do that? Like, why would you... No judgment, but judgment. Like, why would you put yourself through that? That just screams disaster.
It screams disaster. Best case scenario, it doesn't work. Like, I've had some people who go to Botox parties with unregulated injectors, and then they come to see me and say, the Botox just never worked. It never kicked in. And I say, well, that's the best case scenario, that, like,
you know,
it didn't do anything, but also it didn't do anything.
I had that once.
Create issues.
But it was like a clinic, like a big clinic in Calgary. I'm not going to name them, but I went there and I got Botox under my arms 3 times. That was before I ever tried Botox in my face or anything like that. I got Botox in my underarms once. Didn't work. I went back and they were like, oh, you know, maybe you just need more. They injected it again. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went for the 3rd time because I was like, it's not working. And they were like, okay, we'll add more, but you might be one of those people who's like, just Botox doesn't work on you. And I was like, well, that sucks. Like, I'm definitely all up in that business. I want to like get some Botox, anti-aging stuff and all of that stuff. Very open about it. And they were like, you might just be one of those people like for whom Botox doesn't work. Like, it happens. And then I went to my plastic surgeon who did my nose in Calgary. And she's like, I don't think so. She's like, that I have been practicing for, and she's phenomenal. I've been practicing for, I don't know how long it was at that point, like 15, 20 years. She's like, I've never had anyone on whom Botox did not work. Let me try. Yeah. I was like, okay. She did it and it kicked in like within, I don't know, 5 days or something. And it was like nothing. Like it worked so well. So I asked her, I was like, what the hell happened? And she's like, I can't tell you. Maybe it was watered down. Maybe it was like, I don't know what happened. Did they open it in front of you? And I'm like, no. And she's like, they should have.
Yes, so, they should have. The bottle should have a lot number. I've only seen resistance to Botox in a couple people. And even with them, it's that it used to work. And then over time, it stopped working as strongly. We tried different brands. Sometimes just switching brands is enough, that they'll respond better to a different brand. But I do know someone right now that it doesn't matter what brand they use, it's just not working anymore. So they're going to do kind of a washout period of no injections for a couple years and then try again. But I mean, that's out of thousands of people.
Yeah. Exactly. And they must have been using it for like a really prolonged period of time and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, very prolonged. Probably doing touch-ups too often. That may have played a role. But
how often should you do touch-ups?
I usually say we do treatment, give it 2 weeks to kick in fully. If at the 2-week mark there's any concerns, if it's uneven, if it's too light, if anything needs a little bit more, come in and see me. And then after that, we want to wait at least 3 months before we do further treatment.
I get my stuff done. Botox I have been getting twice a year.
Oh, yeah.
Enough for me.
That's
I'm very non-resistant.
Yeah.
My body and it freezes me.
It's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it doesn't, that's what's so interesting about it. You don't feel frozen.
No.
But I'm pretty frozen, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, but it looks great.
Thank you.
I
got Dysport for the first time, actually.
And it looks well done as well, because there are ways to make it frozen, but
fake.
Actually,
my friend got that once, and her eyebrows, I swear to God, they like lifted so high up. Only for a few days though. Like, it went down.
Yep.
But it was hilarious because it was just like,
And that's
lifted
kind
it
of
all
what
up.
people think of when they hear
Yeah.
Botox. I think they're picturing old school techniques, really high dose, where people were stunned, frozen. Same with filler. I think a lot of people hear filler and they think huge lips, puffy cheeks, overdone. The celebrities where the filler is starting to come in and impinge on their eyes.
What's the deal with that? So I was told not to get ever fillers in like this area. I got something along the lines of Sculptra.
Okay.
Not quite. I got it done back home. It's
Kind of a collagen stimulator.
yeah. It's like
Great.
mineral rich with an effect of a filler, but it's not a filler. And it doesn't
Gotcha.
like my face didn't lift up or anything. It just looked really fresh and like a little bit more plump
Okay.
here. And I was told by some of my friends who have gotten fillers like in these parts of their faces not to ever do it. What's the deal with that? Because you know that look that celebrities sometimes have, like they're always trying to smell something. Like some of them are just they like Kylie Jenner had it a couple of times. She looks beautiful, but there was a couple of photos where it's like she's trying to smell something,
Yes.
but there's nothing in front of her.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, there's certainly ways that Botox and filler can be done. Botox, especially if you freeze certain areas, you can start to recruit other muscles. So sometimes what's happening is certain muscles are being frozen, other muscles are starting to kick in, and then people will find themselves making strange faces. Like they're kind of
Interesting. Yeah.
almost, they look like they're smelling
Yeah.
something. Or it could be more subtle. I notice when I do my Botox and things are as frozen as I like, I started scrunching my nose more because I couldn't move other muscles. So my body was kind of looking for a way to emote or make a face. And so suddenly I was scrunching a bit more. And I mean, for me, I just added a little more Botox in the muscles that scrunch, and then I was happy. But sometimes I think that's what's happening is you're seeing recruitment patterns where weird faces are being made and then not accounted for. And then with filler, anywhere under the eyes, there is a concern, especially for people who are prone to swelling. Some people wake up puffy. They tend towards fluid under their eyes. They tend towards what we call malar edema, which is a little bit of puffiness kind of around the upper cheek area. You'll see these little like cushions of fluid. Some people are a little bit more prone to feeling allergies in their eyes, so they will get watery and puffy and red. Anyone like that has to be really wary of filler within that region, because filler can play a role in inhibiting lymphatic drainage. So if you are already someone who doesn't have the best drainage, tends towards fluid building up and accumulating, the last thing I would want to do is put something in there that
Is there
could limit
danger
it.
to like what could happen? Like could it press too much on something and
Of course, it's taking up space. So if it is right next to a lymphatic vessel and it starts to impinge on that vessel, you'll see fluid accumulate in an area near the filler, usually not right where the filler is, but kind of around it. If filler gets into a blood vessel, it's going to inhibit blood flow. So you'll see signs of compromised blood flow or compromised oxygen within a tissue. And I mean, worst case scenario, if filler gets into a blood vessel of a very important structure like the eye, you can go blind.
ooh.
So those are like the kind of escalating risks that come with certain areas more than others, certain techniques more than others, that we often think of. Under eye filler can be considered more dangerous. Forehead, nose.
Just in general is like so sketchy to me, you know, like because skin here is so thin. I got a treatment. It was sort of like a mesotherapy type of situation back home. When I go back home, I'm like, just fuck me up. Like anything you can do, just do it. Because it's good, and it's the cost of it is like, you know. But anyways, she like suggested, she's like, it's not a filler or anything like that. It just rejuvenates this area. It's like a mesotherapy basically. Oh my God, did it hurt? Oh, it was
no.
so, because it's poking
Little
here,
pokes.
right?
Yeah.
And
Any numbing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
good,
it was
good, but still.
yeah. And I walked out of there looking like, I don't know, it reminded me of like snake skin, you know, like under my eyes, because it just
had little
like
ripply,
bubbles. And
yeah.
I was like, oh, this sucked. And I don't know if it did much, to be honest with you. I naturally have dark circles. I've always had them. I don't know why. Actually, I'd be curious to ask you. Maybe there's some solutions, because I don't know how I feel about filler under my eyes. I really don't know, because I do sometimes swell up.
Yes.
I'm not like that bad, but I will wake up sometimes looking like I had a really fun night when I didn't. Like I would just go to bed.
Yep.
Right. And it happens sometimes. Is there anything you can do that's not a filler?
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is actually PRP. So platelet-rich plasma can be injected in and around the under eye area. It can be injected really superficially, so it would look similar to a mesotherapy, where you'd have all these little blebs of PRP in the area, or we can put it more deeply to try to stimulate collagen and elastin in the deeper layers of tissue in the tear trough. And there's also platelet-rich fibrin, which is a slightly newer technology, but working under the same principle. It's using components of your blood to stimulate collagen growth, increase blood flow, essentially improve the health from the inside out of the area. The only challenge with that is it's a very different timeline. If I put filler in there, then today you would see an improvement. PRP, you're going to have to wait while it does its thing. But it could be considered much more natural. We're not implanting something. We're using your own blood. It doesn't run the risks of vessel occlusion like filler does. It doesn't run the risk of migrating, which filler always has that associated risk. So for some patients, even patients of mine who do filler, they have everyone has their own rules. They're like, I'll do Botox, but only in these areas, or I'll do filler, but only in these spots. Or they're like, I'll do Botox, but never filler, or filler, but never Botox. Everyone's kind of created their own relationship with these things. So it is nice to have the PRP for people who say either no filler ever for them, or they don't want to do filler under their eyes. Then PRP is a great option.
Yeah, I'm going to think about that, because I've always had dark circles under my eyes. No matter how much sleep I get, it doesn't matter. So I'd have to think about that. What are your thoughts on collagen supplements? Because you mentioned collagen. I mean, collagen is like the wealth for your face. What are your thoughts on that?
There's some good research coming out. I think it's being looked at more and more constantly, that certain collagen supplements do tend to improve skin quality. For a while there, it was all theoretical. We were just sort of like, I was just dumping collagen and everything. Going,
that's what I was doing.
This is probably helping. Like,
they say it's healthy.
What's the worst?
It makes my coffee taste better, because I had like the vanilla flavor.
Oh yeah. Like, what's the worst that could happen? But now I am actually starting to see some research that's saying it is actually improving skin quality and reducing wrinkles and fine lines. I think for most people, they're collagen deficient because we don't really eat food sources of collagen anymore.
What are food sources of collagen?
So it's things like chicken feet.
Oh,
bone broth, kind of like the gristly parts of meat, the areas near bones, like the chicken skin and the cartilage and
bone marrow,
and all of these components that, especially in the Western world, we kind of like divide off the animal.
Have you ever had what's it called, холодец? Have you ever seen that Russian jelly dish?
Where it's like it's gelatin.
It's
like
gelatin.
It wiggles.
It wiggles, but it's made from the broth that you get from the bones.
Yes.
So you make the broth, and it's a very complicated thing to make. I've never made it. But it's supposed to basically just be like a dish of pure collagen from either chicken. I think you can make beef ones. Whenever I go back home, I just like destroy it. I also really love it.
Yeah.
People in the, like, especially in this part of the world, they get like scared of that dish. Like my husband will not try it. He refuses to try it because he's like, this looks really, really bad.
Yeah.
But it's just pure collagen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Something like that is excellent. And we used to eat closer to a collagen rich diet. It was just part of our traditional diet that you had all parts of the animal, and there really are benefits to eating all parts, including organ meats.
Right.
But I know in the Western world there's this we like to sanitize things. We want to pretend like the animals we're eating weren't killed. We want to pretend like the collagen is just a powder.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of an animal. We definitely don't want to know what part it was. And that's fine.
We're so sensitive here. God.
What is the snowflakes?
Snowflakes.
Yes. All unique snowflakes.
So true.
So if someone didn't want to take a supplement, they could also incorporate collagen-rich foods, and that would certainly have the same effect, if not a better effect. And there's a lot of nutritional theories that when you have something as part of a whole, it your body responds to it better.
Right.
Like the vitamin C we get in an orange is different than the vitamin C in a capsule. Our body does respond differently. So if you can bring it in as food sources, I think that's excellent, especially because it's not just going to help skin. It's really good for joint health. And so many people who have aches and pains and joint issues, especially at an early age nowadays, is really shocking. So that's an easy thing to incorporate that could really help. It's nice that a lot of things that help your skin help the rest of your body. A lot of habits that are good for skin also are good for your hormones and your fertility and so on.
Your skin kind of reflects what's happening, right?
Internally, for sure.
So whenever something is off, I see it right away on my face. Is there anything that is like a total must to take or to do to have skin like yours? Let's put it that way. To have really good skin. Like a skin care, internal or external or both, that you're like, I can't live without this, and this is actually what's improving my skin.
I mean, I have a few things that have been like absolute game changers for me.
Grab a notepad if you're listening to this right now, and I mean, you could just screenshot this or screen record, whatever.
Yeah, I'll give the things that actually changed my skin. Eating loads of animal products, like meats, bone broths, etc., for all the reasons we just talked about. Cutting out alcohol.
Like completely?
Completely.
What about a glass of wine?
I mean, I think everyone has a different sensitivity level. For me, it had to be gone.
Could you see it in your skin?
I could see it in my skin, in the fluid I would hold on to, the weight that I would hold on to. I mean, cutting that out changed my body. I stripped off weight. It created a glow. I don't wake up puffy in the ways that I did when I drank. Yeah. So for me, I had to go.
That's it.
None.
Completely. So you don't drink at all?
No. And that's been about 8 years, and I've just seen the benefits grow and grow and grow. Maybe for some people, they have a better tolerance, that it's kind of here and there. They could do okay with it, but you have to sort of...
My tolerance is going down.
That's what I was going to say. You have to sort of keep checking in with that, because it does tend to change over a lifetime.
For me, like a piece of steak, and I want you to finish the list for sure, but I just want to interject because it's so sad. My favorite thing in the world, like if I could live off two things for the rest of my life, it would be a piece of steak with a glass of dry red wine, like a substantial glass, not like a bottle in a glass, but like a 9-ounce dry red wine with a piece of steak it's my love language. I love it so much. Like just the combination, the way it breaks the fat. And for the past, I've noticed that wine affects my sleep a long time ago. But before, I would have to drink like 3 glasses for me to feel it at night. Like I would wake up at night, I would get heart palpitations. Sometimes I would even feel like this severe anxiety. But I knew, okay, 3 glasses and then I'm going to feel it. But 2 glasses, I'm fine. Great. So then I have 2 glasses. I'm fine. I'm good. I sleep well. And then recently, 2 glasses starts to cause it.
So you're down to 1.
Now I went down, but then I'm like, I should just try not to as much as I can. And then on nights that I really feel like having, like accompanying my steak with a glass of wine, I should just have 1 glass. But yeah, basically, like I had, and at first I thought maybe red wine, because for some people, red wine specifically causes that.
For sure.
So it's like, okay, cool. Maybe rosé is my new thing. Even though I specifically love just dry red wine. I'm not even a fan of white. I had 2 glasses of a rosé with a lot of food the other night. And it was fish, which I was told that like fatty fish is really good for sleep. 2 glasses of rosé, not big glasses, just, you know. And I had it at maybe 7, 8 p.m. Woke up about an hour after I fell asleep. And same thing, heart palpitations. I can't fall asleep. I'm like wide awake. It was like 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay, I'm good to go, I guess. I was able to luckily fall asleep again that night, but it just seems like my tolerance is just going down and down and down. And I'm like, I'm going to like lose all my tolerance. I'm not going to be able to have anything.
I know.
And I can't have any other type of liquor. Like if I've saved vodka for very special occasions, I always say that if I need to teach a Westerner how to drink vodka, I'll do it, because y'all do it the wrong way here. But that would have to be like a really, really special occasion.
But that's providing a service to the world.
There you go. Thank you for making me feel better.
Have to do.
You're like, let's put a different light on that.
We can spin that. That's a gift you're bringing to the masses.
Yeah, but alcohol, it messes with my sleep, and then what messes with my sleep messes with my skin, because if you don't get a good night's sleep,
day messes with your mood. Yeah.
Okay, so no alcohol.
No alcohol for me.
Yeah.
Getting up first thing in the morning, going outside in the sun, going for a walk has been a total game changer for mood.
Coming from someone who lives
hormones.
in Vancouver. So how do you do that for half of the year when it's really gloomy here?
So sometimes there's a caveat to that it's you get outside first thing in the morning in the gray. Because even if it's cloudy, there is some light breaking through that your eyes and your brain register as morning light. Which essentially signals this entire hormone cascade that tells your body it is the morning, release certain things. That means in about 12 to 15 hours, it's going to be bedtime. So release certain things then. Like you get a good night's sleep by having a good morning. You're setting the stage for your sleep.
What are your thoughts on sunscreen?
A little bit of sunscreen on the face, always.
Yeah.
Other parts of the body, I do, kind of treat loosely. If I'm going to be out right now we're in a heat wave in Vancouver. It's a rare occurrence, but it's happening. So if I were to go out today between 1 and 3 p.m. or 1 and 4 p.m. even, when it is very hot, very sunny, I'll put some sunscreen on certain areas that are really going to be exposed, like the top of my shoulders, my chest, neck, and then always face.
Always face. Hey,
always face.
There's been some controversies about that. I recently found a sunscreen that works really well, because before that I would notice negative things when using sunscreen as opposed to not. But I keep hearing from people that, like dermatologists, aesthetic medicine professionals, they say like you should protect your skin a little bit, because it will dry up kind of thing. So
and with that, I always use a zinc oxide based sunscreen. Personally, I don't like some of the research coming out around nanoparticle sunscreens that are more it's a variety of chemicals that do shield the sun, but there's some evidence to show they get into your bloodstream. They can have an effect on the endocrine system, and it's kind of a components I don't want to mess around with, especially knowing that zinc oxide is great. It's protective. It if you find the right formula, it goes on smoothly. And it also has some effects on reducing breakouts. So I found when I started using a zinc oxide face sunscreen, especially one that doesn't have pore clogging ingredients, my skin improved. So it was kind of a win-win, less breakouts. I personally love the one from Clear Stem, which I don't have an affiliation with, but I just came across their products and I love it. Goes on nicely. It has a little tiny bit of a tint. So most days I'm not even putting on makeup. I'm just putting on their tinted sunscreen.
I do that with Frey skincare. I have to check I know it's mineral. It's 100% mineral sunscreen. And it is so light. Like there's been times when I would go outside and normally when I put it on, I don't put on any foundation, but I'll sometimes, if I have like this situation happening or something, I need to be in front of a camera, I'll put on the mineral sunscreen and then foundation, and still it feels really light. Because before I would apply some sunscreens, and that's why I really didn't like using them. They were so heavy, and then like by the end of the day I would have like a breakout, a mini breakout, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like,
or they kind of pill. If you layer
if you layer it,
things, they would kind of start to disintegrate or almost get like little clumps. Yeah. Sunscreens come a long way.
Yeah, sunscreens have come a long way, and that makes sense. So get sun for yourself to stabilize, regulate hormones. Anything else for skin at all that you could recommend to have like that perfect glass glowy?
I think a lot of what I'm doing nowadays with my patients is I'm actually reining in some of their skin routines. We're exposed to so much information that sometimes when I talk to patients and I ask them what they're doing, it's not that we need to add anything.
We need to
subtract. Like, let's subtract.
I know, it's like, how do we get to like 10-step skincare routine? It's like, do you really need all of that?
At a very young age as well. There's a lot of products being brought in that they really don't need yet. I mean, they're doing things for collagen stimulation and they're like 19. I'm like, you have your collagen. Like, you're good.
Enjoy while this is happening, while this lasts.
Yeah, you're not starting that decline yet. Or they're very breakout prone. And then when we talk about what they're using, it's all these different acids and exfoliators, and they're just stripping the oil off of their skin. And then they're not replenishing it because they're like, oh, I have oily skin. I don't really want to use a moisturizer. I don't really want to use an oil. So the skin is then drying out. And of course, our body's always trying to keep homeostasis. So if it registers that the skin is very dry, it will then increase oil production. You get more oil, more breakouts, and then the cycle continues of masks and exfoliating and acids. And it's creating a lot of irritation, and it's really stripping the skin barrier off of their face.
It's probably just like being a victim of all the advertisement, hey? Hate using the word victim, but honestly, like sometimes I walk into Sephora and I'm like, do I need like 10 more products? And I'm like, no, I don't. But everything looks so delicious. Everything is like colorful. So I can only imagine, like, I didn't have Sephora where I grew up, right? Like we didn't really have so much variety when I was growing up. But if you're a teenage girl and you walk into a Sephora, to add to that, you know, pictures of Kylie Jenner and all these celebrities on these stands and all of these colors and all of these different products, and they keep on coming, right? So,
and they keep on coming, and there's really misleading marketing right now where you have celebrities saying that a product is their holy grail. And I look at their face and I know they must
Did you hear the whole Kylie? I keep bringing her up. I don't know why. Like, I think I have absolutely nothing against her. I think, you know, she's great and everything. But there was like a controversy recently that came up that she was like dissolving her lip filler. And then they like traced it because, you know, she used to look completely different. She obviously had a lot of work done. But apparently they were saying like she got lip fillers right before she launched her like iconic lip kit that was advertised. I've never seen advertisements for that, so don't quote me on it, but it was basically like, if you want lips like Kylie Jenner, this is the kit that you use, right? So it's like certain things that it's fine. I understand it's all marketing and stuff like that, but I think yeah, there's definitely a part of it that, especially again, if you're a teenage girl, because you're so self-conscious when you're a teenager. I mean, even in your 20s, and like sometimes I still am like,
any
you know,
age, you can
any
kind of
age,
get preyed upon in the right moment where you're not having a great day and you think,
exactly,
maybe I do need fill in the blank.
That's why I get a lot of flack online for being open about it, and people call me all sorts of stuff. But I'm like, I'm open that I had work done. Very open about it, because no, I was not born with lips that were this size. I was looking fine before that, but I got lip fillers. Like, my lips were not like this naturally. I would have probably had a wrinkle by now here, because it's like a genetic thing. So I do get, like, I'm open about that stuff. Because if I lie, isn't that worse? So now I'm positioning myself as like this natural, 100% natural, you know, 100%.
Yes.
A lot of celebrities do that, you know? So it's like, if a girl looks at me, and I don't know, I mean, you could debate me from all sides, and I totally get that. But to me, if I'm open about it, hopefully the message is like, hey, I got stuff done. Like, you know, so don't put me as like some beauty standard for yourself, if that makes sense. Whereas if I say like, oh, it's all natural, then I'm, you know, I don't know. That's kind of a...
I agree. That's kind of where I land. I'm totally okay with someone being asked about anything personal.
Yeah.
And they can say, oh, I don't comment on that.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to talk about it.
For sure. But if you're not going to share, and then there's a claim made that, well, my lips actually come from this lipstick that I love.
Yeah. I just put on a lip gloss and my lips tripled in size.
That's then a lie.
Right.
And that's not fair, especially to impressionable women who maybe can't decipher between what is natural and what is not. And they're buying something actually thinking it's going to freeze their wrinkles or enlarge their lips.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's like, I don't think anything can freeze your wrinkles as good as Botox. There's no other product that I've tried that froze my forehead and I didn't have any wrinkles anymore.
Yeah.
That's my experience. I don't know. Like, it's, you know, I try to enhance the features that I have, not totally change them. But I'm open about it. I have certain things that I've done, right? So that's kind of the reality of it.
And I'd be the first to tell people if I come across a product that I actually feel does that. If suddenly there's the holy grail of serum that you put on that actually freezes muscles the way that Botox does, that'd be incredible. Especially because there's certain periods of your life where you cannot use Botox. So I'm always looking for something that pregnant women could use, breastfeeding mothers could use. I would be the first to advertise that.
For sure.
But I haven't found one yet.
If you do, please let us know, okay?
I will share. I'll shout it from the rooftops. But so far, everything that especially a celebrity claims made them look the way that they look. I've just been disappointed, especially when I look at the actual construction of the products, the lack of active ingredients, the lack of scientific research behind tons of these brands that just have a great face, but really subpar products. And they're expensive too, because of that face. You're paying for a name and a face. And you're just getting kind of bamboozled. And that money could be better spent towards things that actually improve your health, you know, or whatever you want.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. Maya, thank you so much. This was lovely. I appreciate you coming on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fantastic.
And thank you to our wonderful listeners for tuning in. I will see you next week.